It is interesting to think about what the levers are that can move this. Recently I was at BlackRock, which is the world's largest investment firm, and they're being pushed dramatically by their investors towards where is a fund for sustainable? I want to invest my money in sustainable. So they've put a whole task force on that. They're creating a whole new business, as are Bain Capital, as are Goldman Sachs. So you start to see different levers being pushed because people generally, from the bottom, whether they're rich or poor, are beginning to look at this in a different way. So I'd like you to, if you could, help us do a little reimagining the future. Where would you see us, realistically or not? Well, let's pick 10 years. Let's not be too ambitious. Where would you see us as a society in 10 years? Are there certain areas that we could see growing? Are there certain leadership that will be emerging from different countries? Where do you see this heading?
Yeah, before that, I also want to get into this a little bit. One minute on the Donald Trump thing. No, I'm glad Trump is here because now you know that so much of the population actually, that means our messaging has not gone to the populations. Let's be very clear. He might be a denier, but many others are deniers. That means we have to strengthen the language using live examples of this is what's happening. That means it's not hitting home what the problem is. So rather than blaming Donald Trump, I think we all should get together. Some sorts of crises should happen regularly. Otherwise, we ourselves don't wake up. And it's a good wake-up call. The Europeans have woken up. The Indians have woken up in terms of, okay, we need to have a better message. Everything else. So it's okay. I mean, it's only a 4-year. Hopefully you guys don't elect him again. But so people have elected him. So I would say, so let's look at the language. But how and without the future is, I mean, 10 years. Hopefully, it's for me the biggest danger which we need to remove. It's not about this disparities of what is happening in terms of wealth. Are we able to remove the disparities of thinking, where we assume on the name of color, caste, creed, what the other person is? I think if we start breaking those, and what degrees do you have? So we have created another caste system of degrees, color, caste, and that needs to break down. And if we start breaking that down, that's practical. That's how where you come from is becoming more important today. And we are building, as somebody said, we are building more walls rather than what it was, right? That's because of that disparities of thinking, rather than respecting. I mean, if tomorrow somebody attacked from Mars, we all would, do we say the Filipinos have to first fight the Americans or the Indians? We all will fight together, and climate change is that threat, right? You cannot be a nationalist and an environmentalist at the same time. And I think we are becoming nationalists in each of our countries, while the environment belongs to everybody else. The poverty is that systematic disease across the world that needs to be ruled. So hopefully in 10 years, we have, I'm not saying we'll solve it, but hopefully we have the processes. That processes, at least we all start looking where we make it platforms where the poor can actually think that they can have a chance, not only to have a better livelihood, but to contribute as innovators and entrepreneurs. In 10 years, can we create those platforms? If that is done, then we'll move faster in the next 20 years. That's all.
All right, I'm going to ask, thank you. I'm going to ask Cesar to do the same thing, and while you're answering it, I'm going to go out and see if I can pull out some comments and questions for you.
Okay, so focusing a little bit more on the energy sector, I mean the stuff that we need to be working on, at least on a more immediate basis, right? Is first of all, looking at our own operations, we need to make sure that we're as efficient and we are as prudent in our hydrocarbon discharges. The second one is I'm speaking now more for Shell, right? Continuing to push the use of LNG, as I've said, because of the lower CO2 opportunity that it could afford and the cleaner potential. Biofuels is another one. I mean, our biofuels venture in Brazil, for example, has the ability to produce 70% less CO2. Yeah, from cultivation to actual consumption. So again, these are steps that are steps we should be taking now, and we're actively participating in. And of course, renewables, I very like, particularly like your idea of democratizing it, because actually it democratizes it, because it allows the establishment of microgrids, allows the establishment, so greater electrification through renewables. These are some of the stuff that we could be doing right now, here and now, that are non-regret moving forward.
Thank you. Wow, my head is spinning already. So let's complicate these even further. Questions or comments? We'll start over here, and we'll come over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I am John Ran, and I came from a student organization in the University of the Philippines. And I am advocating for responsible and effective use of biotechnology in producing renewable energy. Currently, in one of our projects, we are helping a farming community in our place to produce renewable energy or biofuels from agricultural waste. My question is, what are you doing to provide youth organizations like us have access to resources that we need to really pursue these kinds of initiatives? Thank you.
Yeah. Short answer is we are doing quite a bit in Europe and in Brazil in investing in the second generation of biofuels. As you said, at the moment, the biofuel production is focused on sugarcane, which sometimes compete with the food chain. Therefore, it's important that we're able to develop the second generation that would use waste products to be able to. So unfortunately, there's still some nuances in technology that needs to be solved. But it's a very important step that needs to be taken. And then we are heavily involved in the development of the second generation technology.
Yeah, so we're not, but I would say, taking the same cue from you, is what we are trying to do is how do we put in some of the challenges of energy, and how do you look at sustainable energy and different technology and business models in engineering schools and vocational schools, and parallelly actually also working with financial institutions and vocational schools to create what you call, let's say, the R&D fund for the younger scientists and younger vocational training graduates to fail. Because what we lack is the money to fail. And how do you then, the third is, then the people who come out of that failures are the technologies and business models that need to come up, and then how do you work with the local financial institutions to create the softer capital for them to grow. So we look at these 3-4 steps to build that process up. Yeah.
One of the interesting things I think that we haven't touched upon, there's so much innovation going on from the bottom on all these issues. If we would go around the globe, you would be overwhelmed by all of these. This last question was again an example of one example here in the Philippines. We haven't really talked about the role of the media. Right? The media loves the dramatic, but is a little reticent to cover some of these other issues. So as we get into this, let's think of that as well. Next question here. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Ben from the UK. I asked a question yesterday about communities. Dr. Harish, I completely agree with you about kind of being positive. There's no point in complaining about any party, to be honest, whether it's private companies, thank you, or the government, and especially the government, because the people vote the government in. So difficult to complain about it when it's your point. But I was wondering if the audience can just help me out here. Is anyone, and with that in mind, by the way, I used to be a big complainer and ranter and raver and social media addict, and thinking that would do good, but I tried to change myself massively over the last 2 years to actually find solutions instead of complaining about things. But just with that in mind, can everyone just put your hand up here if you're from a government department? Is anyone from the government?
Interesting, yeah.
So, I see a lot of frameworks and drawings, right? And I completely agree with them. They're not just fancy art diagrams. The combination of government, civilians, community, and private sector is absolutely key to get these things moving. And I just think we had a fantastic keynote speech yesterday from the Vice President. It was an honor to be here. It's the first time I've shared a room with her in my 2 years being in the Philippines. And we had a retired member of government yesterday as well, Attorney De Lima. So it's great to see these people here, but it's a shame there aren't more government people on the panels. because we're hearing from a lot of smart, effective people that are getting things done or that have solutions. And it's a shame there aren't more government people here today, because I absolutely agree you need that partnership in order to drive these things forward. And that's my point.
Great contribution, very good contribution. Yeah, I'm sort of amazed that there aren't. I thought we had certainly more yesterday than we have today. But again, as we look at this, none of these sectors can be a bystander. I mean, somehow all of them have to get involved in each one. Okay, let's take another question over here.
Good morning. I'm Ellie. I come from the healthcare sector and asked a question yesterday, but I guess this is coming more from Dr. Hande's point. I'm someone who is from the under 30 age bracket, so maybe that's the better link to this because of the spirited discussion. And a short preamble. We mentioned about tripartites and the importance of balance when it comes to imagining our future, particularly for the sustainability of energy, make it more sustainable for future generations, etc. But so far, starting from Dr. Ligara's talk, just to link that with the discussions that has been today with Dr. Hande and Sir Cesar, what we're looking at would be, what I'm looking at is, it would seem that sectors in the society who are privileged are in a better position to capitalize on knowledge and learning and understanding, which in turn gives them more power in the tripartite versus, let's say, the marginalized sectors who would have limited access to this knowledge and information and all of the things necessary to balance. That's not to say even further our discussion with the role of the government, because the government's role, I would assume, would be to balance this, but it's inherently imbalanced if this is the case. So my question is, how do we ensure, or what would be the leverage that those that are from the marginalized sectors, and it might be rhetorical, I'm not sure at all, but what would be the leverage that people from these marginalized and discriminated sectors could have to balance this tripartite arrangement?
Good question on that. Okay. Harish, you want to start with that? What's the leverage?
It's one thing we have to also realize that we have also not articulated the information that lies with the marginalized sector. We always assume that how do they leverage the knowledge that is there elsewhere. We also have to say, how do we live? So today when people say that they don't understand us, I always ask the question, do you understand them? Right? The language that we use needs to change. There's enough information among the marginalized where we don't go. That's exactly how do we go away from the concept of beneficiary and as partnerships. Like, I am going there with a certain so-called pseudo expertise and they have the expertise and the knowledge. Am I working together to come up with a solution that is not only good for together to have the third individual benefit, but can other communities with similar thought process? I think we have to change the way our systems are designed. That's why I'm a little scared about the data, because data, what we are capturing is very skewed data. It's not inclusive data in many ways. And how do we, and that is where I think, can the younger generation, who is more accustomed to be not divisive in their thought process, like if my name was Harish, you think it in a certain way. If my name was Mohammad Harish, oh, it's a different way. If I am Anthony Harish, you think it in a different way. I think those biases that your generation does not have, can we break that? And then say that the marginalized communities have enough information, but are we together creating tools that we come up with a better solution? I think we need to break our thought process first before thinking about them.
Cesar, you want to add to that? Cesar, do you want to add anything?